Guess what, Greg?
What's that?
Once again, Kind of Funny Gamescast brought to you by
Video blocks.
Video blocks. Look at that eagle. Looking at us.
There's
Stock
that girl
footage.
running.
Awesome stock footage. You can go there. It's very cheap. It's affordable. It's all these good things. Now, the best thing about this, royalty free, Greg.
Yeah.
It's a subscription based stock footage site. So you go there, you pay, you can download as much as you want. Unlimited.
Sure.
Stock footage.
Right. Use it in your videos.
Then royalty free. Even when your subscription's done, this is your
Still
footage.
yours.
You're
So
totally
this
good.
isn't like PlayStation Plus.
Nope. This is
Nice.
the future. Unlimited downloads and unlimited creative uses, commercial uses, all that stuff. There's also audioblocks.com, which is the audio side of things. Where there's a bunch of
no
sound
video
library.
Right.
Yeah.
You want a creaking door? You want a creaking cat? You want a robotic dinosaur? They got it all at Audio Blocks.
Video Blocks is offering you all a year's subscription to both Video Blocks and Audio Blocks for only $149. This is a $100 discount off the normal price. An incredible discount deal to get both stock video and audio files for any future project you may be using. Get your subscription for only $149 at videoblocks.com/Gamescast 2016. As you can see there, videoblocks.com/Gamescast
I hope you enjoyed this ad, Cisco.
2016.
He liked the other one.
Topic 2. Biggest gaming disappointments and fuck-ups and mistakes of 2016.
No Man's Sky.
I think that's the number one.
Of course, yeah. Is there any argument that that's the number one? I think
That's the thing is like I feel like that's a fuck up on such a monumental level. It wasn't just the launch that was fucked up because there's other games that had fucked up launch.
Sure,
pretty much every AAA game ever at this point. But the thing is like the Division, right? It comes out, issues all around, people having a lot of problems with it, but then fairly quickly fixes itself. People love it, right?
Sure.
And then it might fall off, but then it comes back and it's just, whatever. But No Man's Sky is that one that just
it wasn't a
like,
technical thing they had a problem with, right?
Yeah.
It was the entire marketing spiel leading up to it. It was the pitch of what gamers thought they were about to get based on trailers and interviews and all these different things. It was a colossal fuck up.
The thing about No Man's Sky to me is that it's a failure on so many levels. It's not just a marketing level. It's not just a game design level or the way they delivered it. It's like everyone was in on it, and I don't mean that in like a very like it's a fucking conspiracy, but everyone had a hand. All angles had a hand in making this a complete disaster. The game, first of all, I don't think is good. In this short time I played it, I think it's fucking boring. But apart from that, the marketing was disingenuous, and that's Sony's fault. Sony overexposed this game for years. That's Sony's fault. PR had a hand in it as well, obviously, with Sony. And then Hello Games didn't deliver the game that they went on around and promised for years. They didn't deliver on a lot of things they promised. And again, I was as people might remember, I was one of the skeptics that wanted to give Hello Games maybe the benefit of the doubt originally until people like Jim Sterling and others did videos and had some evidence where I'm like, okay, this is clearly what they said and they did not deliver. And I think that that's a failure on that level as well. And as I said before, it's a failure on media's level. The way the media hypes up games is sad to me. And this is a good example of we're allowed to be excited about games, right? And sometimes it doesn't pan out. Mafia 3 is a great example. I was super excited about Mafia 3 and I was actually positive it was going to be good. And I think the narrative was good and I think it was an interesting story and a very dynamic story, but the game wasn't very good. It was super boring, and that's why after 25 hours, I was just like, I can't play this anymore. I'm not interested in this game. So we're all complicit in that in a way. But the way the media, and as I've said before, even when we were more in mainstream media, when people were talking about No Man's Sky and how great it was going to be and how ambitious it was, I was like, this game is just not going to be what you think it is. And this sets seeds that are sown over several years where people start to expect things out of the game. And so, from any angle you look at it, it was an abject failure, and they paid the price, and then after post launch they just stayed silent. They were weird. Sony was weird. Like it's I hope a good lesson learned from all games like this. I think have to happen every once in a while for people to understand like what not to do, and from almost every angle you learned what not to do with your game release and your game launch, and so hopefully it's a useful tool to people. And for those out there, those few people out there that, and then there are people out there that still enjoy the game and like the updates and stuff, I hope you continue to enjoy it. But for everyone else out there, I hope this was an instruction on to be more skeptical of what media says and what we say, to be skeptical of clear wanting to sell things marketing, which is what marketing does, and PR speak and all those kinds of things, to be wary of developer promises, to do all those things. Those are all very important things.
To be incredibly clear, what you're saying, those aren't mutually exclusive. Like you always say that, you don't think it's a good game. I think I like No Man's Sky. It's a game I intend to get back to. still, that said, does not negate everything that just happened. You know what I mean? Like, I agree. I remember that E3 you're talking about where everybody wanted to vote it for game of the show or whatever.
Yeah, and we were like,
no, like, we've played a bunch of games. And I'm not knocking that looked awesome. I still don't know what that is. And that was 2 E3s of me going, I don't know what this game is. And I was and it's Tired Story. Kevin and I went and played it the 33. And I was like, oh, I know what this is now. I'm looking forward to this. And what I played there is what I got and why I enjoy it. But that doesn't at all take away from all the pomp and circumstance. The video you're talking from, Jim, where it is Sean Murray saying a lot of things that don't show up in the game that aren't mutually exclusive. You're allowed to enjoy the game and be like, but this isn't the game everyone was talking about and thinking it was going to be, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Other just mistakes and fuck ups. Obviously, you can't talk about those things without mentioning Nintendo. I feel like the last couple of years has been really rough for them. And I'm happy that in the last few months, they've done nothing, in my opinion, but great calls, great decisions. The Switch, the marketing seems amazing. Everything with Super Mario Run, the internet stuff, we'll see. Like by the time this post, people are probably playing it already. But that's the one kind of like iffy news. But for people that play any mobile games, when they reach a certain level of AAA in the mobile space, like the internet is a standard. Like that's just something that happens, and it's a phone, so you have your internet. So it's really a detriment when you are on planes and stuff, which granted, that's a pretty big detriment to people like us, but I think to the majority of people, not that big of a deal. But I will give them credit for their entire marketing campaign, their like logo redesigned to look more like it used to be, and like just everything so far with the Switch, they're nailing it. Which means that the whole first half of the year really fucking sucked. I feel like there was a lot of mistakes made in terms of their games. Star Fox Zero comes to mind. They pretty much were like, fuck, we need to make sure that we have something happening on the Wii U because the NX is so far out at that point. And they took a franchise that I love and they really shat on it in a way that they haven't done for a very long time. Like Nintendo, even with the Wii U, like the one thing they did right was treat their franchises with respect and make awesome games that are at a very high polish level. And Star Fox Zero was the complete opposite of that. And it was bullshit. It was a bad game. And it's not hard to nail Star Fox, and yet they fucked it up because they added all the gyro controls and stuff, and they tried to sell the Wii U way too late. It's like they should have gave up on that a long time ago. So it was insulting, to say the least. And I think
but you knew it was coming.
Yeah, and that was the other.
That was a more
too.
insulting thing, right? That like, I mean, how many demos did they need of people saying we don't want to control like this and this doesn't look great? I mean,
yeah, and then
the writing was on the wall before the game got even remotely.
Yeah,
close.
there was a lot of issues with that, and then other things like, and this is more recent, but it still is in what I was talking about, the trend of them switching over in that weird place from Wii U 3DS over to Switch is things like Super Mario Maker 3DS. Fucking awesome game. I've been playing the hell out of it the last couple of weeks, and it's great. But it's super limited. And why can't I download levels that I'm specifically looking for from the internet and like made in the Wii U version? And it seems super backwards, and it's an obvious, hey, there's going to be a Switch version and it's going to be definitive. And like that's again insulting in a lot of ways to people that have invested in these consoles. So it's I think those are big mistakes. The biggest mistake being NES Classic. The shortage of it and the shortage of the cable. Why is it so fucking short? And it's like, those are the type of decisions where it's like, man, the NES Classic was, I'd say, one of the first steps in the right direction for Nintendo, where it's like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. It came out of nowhere. No one expected it. Everybody wants it. And then they still fucked it up.
Yeah, I think 2016 is a tale of two Nintendos where, even though they were only semantically involved in it in Pokemon Go, right? This big phenomenon that's tied into Nintendo. Unless you're a nerd, you don't know that Nintendo doesn't own this stuff or doesn't make this game. No one gives a fuck, you know. So this is good. This is good for them, and they make money on it too. So there's like that kind of stuff. They're foray into mobile with Miitomo and now with Super Mario Run and all these kinds of things. These are positive steps for their brand. The announcement of the Switch is a very positive step for the brand. I think it's going to be successful in its own way. I think people have to limit their expectations of how this thing is not going to sell like a PS4 and Xbox One, but it's going to be successful. It's going to be more successful than the Wii U. And their theme park kind of cooperatives and all those kinds of things where I'm like, there's positive things happening. But I agree, the NES Mini, or whatever the fuck it's called, is one of those things where I'm like, how do you guys not get it? How did this thing sit in prototype form on people's desks and in offices for months, and you guys didn't understand that cord needs to be fixed? What is wrong with you? Like, that's one of those things where I'm like, this is so insane that when I found that out when we got ours, and I was like, how is this possible? everything is great, but why is it like this? And then, I went home for Thanksgiving and I was playing with my brother and his son, and we were playing NES and SNES games. The the original Nintendo Cords controller is fucking massive. I don't even remember it being that long. And I'm like sitting far away from the television, very comfortably. And so I'm like, you guys made this cord so short, to save some money in manufacturing or whatever? Like, it's a tone deaf kind of thing. And I was actually shocked by the reviews, like the positivity that the device was getting after this, because I'm like, this breaks this experience. When I had it at my house sitting, I had to get an extra long HDMI cable, sit it on the coffee table, move the coffee table towards me and the couch forward at Erin's house just to be able to play it like this. And I'm like, I can't imagine what people in more normal, and she lives in a small apartment. What are people in normal living rooms doing with this thing? So you're right. And it also is the understocked nature of it. You're making a device from the 80s. Like, it's not this like PSVR shortages are happening because they're having a hard time with the OLED screens or whatever, apparently. And like they're having problems with specific parts of the VR that's not allowing them to meet demand. There's no excuse for them not to meet demand with this thing. Like someone either fucked up monumentally or they're doing it on purpose. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter, because they always
say
do
with their
that
track
shit.
record, it's probably on purpose.
And it's so stupid. Like just sell that. It's a $60 device that people want and are eager for, and you're killing it. You're killing the momentum. You're destroying the momentum. The controller should have been wireless, first of all. And since it's not, you should have made a longer cord. And then make enough for them so you satiate a market. It's not a Wii. It's not a $250 or $300 machine. It's a cheap machine. It's a stocking stuffer for a lot of people. And so it is a tale of two Nintendos, where I think in a lot of ways Nintendo is coming back to form, because the Wii U was an abject failure, and I think everyone knows that. And it's not that the games were bad. It's just that the machine was not good. And but on the other end, it's like they're still making stupid mistakes. And the only thing I'm concerned about with them moving into March is they are sure as shit hiding things about the Switch, which is smart. But I'm sure that there are things that are not going to be good about the Switch that are going to come out slowly. And I hope that they take the advice that I gave them. Not that they need my advice, but that I gave a month or so ago, where I'm like, get this shit out now. Like, don't do what they did what Sony did to the Vita.
See, I'm really, really hopeful at this point with the amount of rumors that have come out that ended up being true, and with those people putting out further rumors that still sound good. And I'm like, I trust these people at this point. And it's like, I don't know what could be horrible that they put out. I think that the one thing that, because so far price and battery life, all the rumors seem to be pointing towards way better than I expected.
Battery life's 4 to 6 now is what they're saying, 4 to 6 hours?
I mean, there's so many different rumors that talking about it, but I mean, none of them are saying that it's
hour and a half.
Yeah. Like everything's, some are 4 to 6, some are saying 5 to 8, which is equivalent to the 3DS XL. So like that, there's some things where I'm like, I don't expect that. I don't think that we should be up there, but it's like, I'm happy that the rumors are not what you'd expect, which would be the 1 to 3.
Bad
right?
news bears, yeah.
Yeah, that's the bad news. And then all the other stuff, I think that the trophy system and all that, like that's the one set of bad news that could happen. But like, I think that is the least of Nintendo's problems when it comes to that stuff. Like all the virtual console rumors so far sound fantastic. The GameCube stuff, the lineup that is rumored to be out there with Smash Bros. Melee, Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, like these are all signs of Nintendo moving in a good direction. So like, I don't know what the bad news is going to be.
Well, what it couldn't be like,
it's not there.
How can it? I mean, I think that people are asking questions that are technically above my understanding of technology, but specifically like, how can a 4 to 6 hour battery life, $250, $300 device pay 1080p games? Or how can?
Well, it wouldn't. So that's the thing. Is like the rumors are at 720p on the device and then 1080 on a TV. So if it's in the TV, then it's not, the battery life's not a thing because it's plugged in.
I just think that resolution thing's gonna be an issue. I mean, the like
portable?
Yeah. Like people
720's fine. If people have an issue with that,
I
realize Xbox One games, like a lot of them are
900.
like that 900 thing. So it's like 720 on a portable on a screen this big, you're gonna be fine.
All I'm saying is I don't know about that, because that's fine for me. I don't give a flying fuck. I don't even know the difference between 720 and 1080 when I look at it. I don't care. Like that's not. And I think most people are like that. But the people that bitch about things and the people that have power, I think, to affect
sales,
not sales so much, but like feeling,
opinion.
Yeah, opinion. That's
opinion.
a good. Yeah, like. They were bitching about 900p Xbox One games on a TV in 2013. Like 2017, there's just going to be different expectations. And I think that anything that can be perceived as negative, even though I don't think 720 even on a TV is negative for the machines, I don't think it matters for the quality of the game that you're playing. They have to get these things out early because sure as shit that's going to be a bitching point. I mean it is, you know.
As somebody that really does care about that type of stuff, and I like having as high quality experience as possible. Like I refuse to buy the new version of the PlayStation Vita. When I bought one, I made sure I bought one on eBay to get the OLED because I like that stuff. I care about that stuff. When it comes to Nintendo, they have a history of nailing it when it comes to that sort of stuff for what their specific games need. Even on the Wii U, there was a ton of games that were 1080 60 when it made sense, or other games are 720, but it's like, all right, the art style and all that stuff makes up for it. And like, yeah, we're getting to a point where there are going to be people that are like, what the fuck? This isn't 4K, but it's like, you guys, you are such a minority on that it doesn't matter. I think if the system for some reason is topped out at 720 on a TV, then we have a fucking problem. But all the rumors say that's not going to happen. And I think that's the type of bad news that even that I don't think would affect things too much. But that would affect things to people like me, where it's like that means that the system would be worse off resolution wise than the Wii U. And I'm like, I don't see them on a TV, and I don't see them doing that. But 720 on a portable, totally fine.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that on
Yeah,
TV
I can't
too.
wait.
I don't care.
And I think that'll keep the battery life to be good.
I'm pretty bullish on the prospects of the Switch. So
It seems like it's all going to work out in a very, very
there will be
very
bad
impressive
news.
fashion.
There will be
of course,
bad
there's bad news with everything.
The
but
launch lineup might be the bad news too. We'll see. We'll see how that all shapes up. As long as the Mario game's there or something like that, I'll be
that Mario game's there, holy shit.
I'll be good.
Yeah.
I'll be excited. And yeah, the trophy system I'll be interested in as well.
Yeah, so that's all exciting. I think with the NES Classic, it's one of those things where I feel like Nintendo just wanted to have a stuff for the holidays, which is why. So Pokemon Sun and Moon, obviously doing super well. Mario Maker 3DS is totally just hey, we need a Mario game for the holidays. I think the NES Classic was there. And I think the shortage is on purpose in a way just to be like, we want to have the hot ticket item of the holidays. And they totally do. Like, I have so many people hitting me up, like messaging me like, hey, is there any way do you have any connections to get an NES Classic? I'm like, Mike, why do you want it? Like, you really, out of like all things, like, and they want to buy their nephews it and like their friends and cousins and all this shit. I'm like, all right. But I think that that's why there's the shortage there, because it is totally an artificial thing just to make it sound like Nintendo's fucking in demand.
Sure.
Which is a bad call overall, I think, but that's us as critics of video games, and we are looking at it for the good of the people. But from a business perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially going into the January 12th Switch announcement or Switch presentation.
You figure the
launch.
ABC whatever news, it writes itself, right? Of like the hardest thing to get this year is the Nintendo thing. Well, this is
Exactly.
leading into the Nintendo Switch. They're having an event in January and it's coming out in March. Yeah.
Now the short cable, I have no idea. My theory on it, and this is not backed up by anything, and it doesn't even really make sense, but that they have a bunch of leftover cords from the nunchuck to the Wiimote, and that's why it uses that connector. Because it's fucking weird that in addition to the cord being so short, why does the NES controller not use USB? Like, we know the Switch has USB. That would be awesome to have an NES controller over there. So,
well, they'll probably sell you some.
I was going to say, sell you another adapter, sell you another controller.
that's just weird.
Yeah,
seems like a backwards Nintendo move, because like so far it seems like they're moving in a good direction, and we need to move off the Wiimote. Like, honestly, to me, the bad news for the Switch would be if the Wiimote is a thing. If that weird connector and the proprietary bullshit, that would be like, oh man, Nintendo has not learned, and there's way too much bullshit.
I'll go further. And I mean, we said this. I know we disagree specifically because of one game, but no GameCube controller either on the Switch I think would be good.
Oh, I think at this point, now that there's GameCube Virtual Console, the GameCube controller is a necessity.
I just hate that this control. I mean, I want to be clear that the GameCube controller is my favorite controller of all time. I love that controller. There's no more ergonomic. The way that I think just the specific size of my hands or whatever, I don't know if everyone agrees. It's perfect. That controller is perfect. And but I hate this reliance on old things just to support a game. Now, if GameCube's Virtual Console becomes a thing and they want to do that, then that's cool. I guess I have to support it. But you should make a controller that is ubiquitous, that people don't have to go and buy all these peripherals and have all these confusing things. Because if having a Wiimote's confusing, then why would having a GameCube controller?
Because the Wiimote sucks. That's why.
It does. I mean, I like it sideways, but
do you like it as much as an NES controller?
No, although I will say that when I was playing with my nephew NES games, I was remarking that I haven't really played with an NES controller much in the recent years, and that I'm so used to playing with the Wiimote that it felt weird to play with an NES controller. Like just the specific tilt and bend of the controller is just took time for me to get used to again. But it's like riding a bike. It's not really the end of the world. I want them to move forward. Like Nintendo's over reliance on old things is fun, and I like old things. The NES is my favorite console of all time. It's always going to be. But I want to see a new Nintendo try new things and get rid of like these tethers to the past, because I think that's kind of what's figuratively holding them back as well. Like the expectations of like, well, when they make another console after the Switch, if they make another one, is that also going to support the controller from 2001? You know, like when eventually do you just say like, because at that point it'll be like 20 years later. You know, and I'm like, at that point, it's like, come on, guys. Like, just
people
let
are
it
still
go.
playing Smash Bros. Melee 20 years later, though. That's the thing. Is like that's the game that, you know, and them trying to support the esports scene and all that. People aren't going to play with the whatever controller
They
want.
won't if you don't.
Joy-Cons?
You won't if you don't force people to learn new ways to play. So that's my only complaint. But of course, it doesn't affect me because I don't play Smash Brothers.
You do. King Day today.
Besides NES stuff,
Year and a half.
Titanfall 2's release date. I think definitely one of the biggest mistakes of 2016. Putting that game out to die. Many people loved it. Some people thought it was okay. But it's undeniable that it got released at a very bad time.
Of course, yeah, going up against Battlefield right there, Call of Duty on the horizon. It's a weird thing to do, and it feels like that's a game like we've talked about it, and not to beat the dead horse, that you could have put out in spring and had a better shot, given it a chance to breathe. And why they felt they had to do it right now, I don't know. And it's another one, you know, we've talked about this before, of like them trying to make this universe out of it, right? Where there's action figures and t-shirts and all this stuff. And it's like Titanfall 1, I understood the lead up to that, doing all that, because it was this big game for Xbox One. It was the first reason people needed to have it. I played it. I loved it. I left really quick because there wasn't enough to keep me around. And that's, I mean, you talk to Alfredo, who's Mr. First Person Shooter, who was playing competitive Titanfall. He left too. And that's just how that community went. And it never saw that revival. And so I think that a lot of people got it in their head that what was wrong with Titanfall 1 was there had been a vocal minority or even a majority that was talking about single player, and that's what it needed. And that's what it needed to rest its hat on. And they put it in there. And like Colin always says, we got Gen 2 multiplayer, but we get Gen 1 single player with Titanfall 1 that can't compare or can't compete with what's happening. And this is my opinion. This is where you're talking about like people, something gets okay. I like Titanfall 2. I enjoyed the single player. I don't think the single player was head and shoulders above everything. Like everybody kept
Majority of
tweeting
people
about.
seem to think that, though.
It's a little, and this is a different thing entirely, because I played and beat the campaigns for Battlefield 1, Titanfall 2, and Infinite Warfare back to back. And I know people think it's unpopular, but I just think it's popular to hate on Call of Duty, and I don't see in any way, shape, or form how Titanfall 2's campaign is better than Infinite Warfare's. Like that, like I just don't see it. But the sadder thing about Titanfall 2 is it is just an unforced error. I understand what I think they were trying to do, and I don't know that they would ever admit it. And I think that they were trying to do is to just fuck Activision from two angles instead of one. And I understand that that's what they were trying to do, but they at the same time they sacrificed a game that didn't. Because this is the confusion about when you and I talk about Titanfall 2. I think Titanfall 2 is great.
Yeah.
It's just that there are two other better shooters that came out within weeks of it, and that's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. And the market spoke. So people can argue about that all until they're blue in the face, and that's fine. And I respect people's different opinions, but the market spoke. Both of those other games sold way better than Titanfall 2. So EA made a strategic error because Titanfall 2 wasn't a throwaway game that they just had to get out. And my assumption is that they either had some sort of financial thing that they had to get it out before the end of the quarter or the end of the year or whatever, or that they didn't want to pay Respawn X and Y and Z when they wanted the entire team to migrate over to whatever, Star Wars. Or, like I said, I think the idea was to just pincer Activision by trying to whittle down its sales as much as possible to make it look bad in the market. And to do that, it might have worked because Call of Duty sales seem to be down about 20 or 25%. But the thing is, Activision anticipated this because it's Infinity Ward's turn, and they're just not as beloved anymore as they used to be. Treyarch is really the king of the hill in that regard. And they took a franchise that could have been fledgling, could have done something. Titanfall 2 sales were demonstrably worse than Titanfall's. The original Titanfalls, and it's on more consoles. So, you know, when we're talking about specifically the UK sales and the way it charted in the UK and comparing it's like 50% or something like that, which is terrible. A 50% fall off or even a 20% or a 30% fall off on a sequel, when you expect sequels to usually sell better historically in video games, or at least attract people to the old game and then get into the new game, means that there will be no Titanfall 3. And they didn't have to do that. And I think it's sad. The EA has the money and Respawn has the wherewithal and the next project to have just held that game and just sat on it. And I don't understand why they didn't just release it in February or March and give it room to breathe. Because although there are shooters always coming out, but there are Call of Duty and Battlefield are the kings of the genre, and you just want to stay away from them. You're not going to win that fight. You didn't win that fight. And hopefully, again, instructively, what we were talking about with No Man's Sky, I hope publishers, specifically EA and Patrick Sutherland and all those guys, look at this and be like, we made a huge fucking mistake, and we can't do that again. And because in my mind, it's the 4th best shooter of the year. It didn't even need, Doom is also a better game, so it didn't need to be released like that. And I think it's sad, not because I care about, or I know people at Respawn or anything like that, but just because they made a game that deserved better sales and better recognition than it got.
It deserved a chance to live.
And so I think that's a massive mistake, and Activision's probably laughing about it. Like we knew, we're still selling more than Battlefield and your Titanfall combined, and when you really didn't damage us that much. And I think that was probably the intent, but I don't know that they'd ever admit that. And who the fuck really knows?
Another huge mistake I thought was the PlayStation 4 Pro conference itself.
I'll go further and say I think the huge mistake was the PlayStation 4 Pro messaging stem to stern. Not the console itself, not even bringing that into the fray yet, but the way the information leaked out about this, developers talking about it at GDC, people writing about it, there was going to be this thing, and then Sony letting it build and build and build to where we're sitting there talking about what this machine could be, and is it going to be this interstitial step, and what is it going to be, blah, blah. And then Andrew House coming out and giving a weird throwaway comment leading into E3 at like Business Week or whatever the hell it was, and being like, nah, don't worry about it, it's this, that, and the other. So already pulling the rug out from underneath it, where it doesn't sound exciting because Andrew House isn't excited about it, and they're not going to talk about it at E3 when they're supposed to talk about their exciting stuff. At E3, Xbox Scorpio video happens. It's got all the teraflops, and developers are talking positively. It's the first time we've heard about this machine, and people are excited about it, versus developers who don't know what they're doing, rumors of them not being excited to have it, and this Andrew House, all right, fine. Then, all right, fine. No. We're going to do a conference. We're going to do this conference for it. It looks and sounds like the PlayStation 4 reveal event. We get there. It is 100% not. It is trying to match that beat for beat, but it is off from the very beginning. It isn't exciting. This is an interstitial upgrade. This isn't life-changing. This is not PlayStation 4 ecosystem changing. This should have been a release. This should have been a PlayStation blog post. Hey, we're putting the PlayStation 4 you know and love is getting a slim model. It's getting this price. And we have this PlayStation Pro model that's going to give you 4K HD visuals. People would have seen that and been like, oh, that's cool. All right, fine. That's great. And instead, it was this thing that tore apart of usually tight-knit PlayStation community of people who were like, well, that's stupid. And then everybody was like, this is awesome. And then this huge thing going. And then not only that, I checked my phone a second ago because I wanted to reread an email from a developer. Not only that, you are then to the point now that it's been out. It's been out for months. Then now what I usually hear about this from the audience, or people want to tweet to me about it who are confused by it, is that it's super confusing what patches are doing. Oh, it's PlayStation 4 Pro enabled. All right, cool. But what does that mean? They have to dig into settings to figure out where they're going or what this is. Sometimes it's just in patch notes. Nobody knows exactly what's happening. And then I have an email from a developer recently who hit us up with their game and had to give us a whole paragraph of like, if this is happening on your PlayStation 4 Pro, we don't know. We don't know why that's happening. Sony has checked the game for us, and it's happening. If you play it on a PlayStation 4, it's fine. PlayStation 4, this might happen to you. We're looking into it, but we don't know. That is a fucking email a developer gave us when delivering their game. So, and that's not unheard of. How many games, and not fucking mounds and mounds of them, but there's been other stories of other games that are on PlayStation 4 Pro and running worse than PlayStation 4.
Yeah, and developers that have spoken to us that are not crazy about it, whether or not people want a discount or not. It happened. And it is somewhat unheard of for a console developer to come and say, like, we don't know what the problem is. I've never actually really heard that before, because now these guys are splitting their attention. Here's the thing about PS4 Pro is that it clearly didn't light the world on fire. Everyone knows that. But the bigger thing is that it just, and I stand by this 100%, just unnecessary. It's just totally unnecessary. And I'm glad that people are enjoying it and their 4K TVs and HDR. That's totally awesome. I don't think it's unnecessary because it can't do cool things that makes the game better or makes it run in a higher fidelity or whatever the case may be. I think it's unnecessary because Sony should have just sat on whatever they were doing and just released the PlayStation 5 in a couple of years. And now you have this weird console interstitial that is confusing at best and unnecessary at worst. And I agree with you. The stem to stern thing, where it's like all of it's confusing, none of it makes any sense, and that says everything you need to know about how intuitive the market's going to think that the machine is as
If
well.
they would have just done the blog post, right, or the press release, and it was something that was inactive for developers, I feel like it would be a different story. We wouldn't be like this. It's cool, it's there, and when my PlayStation 4 breaks, blah, I can get it. And that's what I keep going back to. It didn't set the world on fire. I still don't think they expected it to necessarily. I think what it was is, hey, you already own a PlayStation 4, which means you weren't going to buy a PlayStation 4 any fucking time soon. So Mike Drucker, all these other people on Twitter I see, even you, Tim, you're like, I'm going to get one now. I'm going to put money into something I wasn't putting money in, and then like I keep talking about it, when my jet engine PS4s die, I'm gonna pick up a Pro, sure.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like going into it, I was from the beginning, like back when the Neo rumors were going on, I was saying this is not going to be the PlayStation 4.5, whatever. This is going to be the equivalent to a Slim, to a whatever. It's just going to be an iteration. And I think that the reason it's where it's at is because 4K TVs are now the standard of what you're buying. Anyone buying a TV now, you're buying a 4K TV. You're not buying a 1080 TV. It's just it's almost impossible to get one at Best Buy or any place you're buying a TV. Like you have to go out of your way to get a lesser quality TV at this point. And that Sony needed to be able to stand up to when Xbox One S is having HDR and having all these things, the buzzwords. And I just think the major mistake was the conference. I think that the system itself is fine. It's great. I'm super excited for mine. Like I bought a 4K TV to be able to have this stuff because I care about that shit. So I'm like, cool. Is it necessary? No. Want it though.
No, and I hear you, and that's the whole thing is, I mean, like what Colin and I was talking about. If you want it, great, you go get it. And you had, if I had a 4K TV, maybe I wouldn't, and all that stuff. But it's. I want to say classic Sony because we've covered them for so long. This next year is going to be a decade for me covering PlayStation, and they weren't making these missteps where it's like, all right, cool. We're launching PlayStation VR. This is for the hardcore audience. This is for the PlayStation 4 kids. Great. Sure. We're launching PlayStation Pro. I'm not jazzed to join you on that journey, but so many of the audience and people were in the PlayStation community. They were excited for that. And they get it home, and there isn't a 4K or whatever it is pass through for the VR unit. Where you can't, if you have it set up where your VR is connected all the time, going into that box to get the most out of your PlayStation 4 Pro, you have to unplug the HDMI and put it back into your console. And then when you want to use VR, go over and back unplug it. It's like these are two high-end boutique niche items, and we didn't think to make them work on that level. And if you can't, then why do this? You know what I mean?
Because it was totally that's the thing is, like, regardless of the fidelity of the machine, I'm sure it's great. There are people that like it. I'm sure that it's going to make games look better. Horizon Zero Dawn is going to look great on it. All that. That's all fantastic. My whole thing is, like, if Sony is going to pick up the gun and shoot it, then fucking cock the gun and shoot it at someone's head, as opposed to like shooting it in the air and hoping you hit something. Half cocked. It doesn't make any sense. Like the whole messaging, the whole marketing, the whole the lack of connectivity between the devices that they're selling right now. All those kinds of things. It all doesn't make any sense. So it sells the device at a short shrift because the device very well may be great, but no one's gonna, or a few people are gonna know because all the messaging is skewed and everything's awry. Meanwhile, I would have been interested to see like a proper Sony push on this machine to see how the market really does react to it, because we're never really gonna know because of all the fuck ups about how the market in a vacuum, in a perfect world, would really want this machine. In other words, it was a great idea to at least try something, just throw it out there. We were talking about on Game Over Greggy show about how Amazon just invested in all this shit that they don't even really care about to see if anyone cares, like their phone and their tablet and all this kind of stuff. Well, put it out there and see what people think of it. But do it with a little more heart. You know what I mean? Like, because now we don't really know.
To be clear, sorry to fact check myself, because again, this is all German to me. I don't care about any of this. It doesn't matter. It's not why I play games. It's PSVR will pass through 4K, but not HDR to the 4K TV.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's just another.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. HDR is still so early in its infancy of, compatibility with everything. And I feel like even just that technology itself is still figuring out. So it's like adding consoles and VR and all this stuff to that. Like there's going to be a lot of issues. There's going to be mistakes. And that's why I'm excited. For me, it's investing in wanting the best quality experience for games like Horizon. There's going to be a lot of issues right now because these games weren't made with all that stuff in mind. Horizon is being made. Horizon is the flagship title for the HDR PS4 Pro experience. And that's why I'm excited for that. Final Fantasy 15, supposedly, like the patch is going to be coming and that's going to make it a lot better and do all that stuff. And I'm excited for that. But that's going to have issues as well because you're patching it into a game, whereas these other games are being made from the ground up for it. But for me, again, I think the mistake was the conference. I think that they shouldn't have had a conference. It should have just been a press release. And I think that they should have let the media kind of tell people why this is important. That would have been a perfect thing to have a blog post or whatever of, hey, here's this thing, similar to the Xbox One S, which that was revealed at E3, but just in a trailer form, almost as an afterthought of, oh, this is a thing. Here's our slim model.
Slimmer, cheaper,
right?
Go.
Cool. PlayStation 4 Pro, they could have done the exact same thing. Don't call it slim, obviously, but just PlayStation 4 Pro, here, it's $400. Here's what it does. You want it or you don't want it, and then let IGN do the graphics comparison videos and put out the things of, look, this is 4K video that you can watch, and that's how the game's going to look if you have a 4K screen. Because us watching on these TVs is not going to do it justice when we watch this conference of them showing the shit because we're not seeing it in 4K. So, yeah, no shit, we didn't like the conference because we were watching it wrong. But that's their problem and our problem because they shouldn't have even said that. They should have let other people say it. And I think that was a really big issue because then it just causes problems with everybody expecting way too fucking much from this thing when it's just a boutique item for the people that want it.
That's true. I will say that I do disagree with one thing you said, which is like they can put it out there, and if you want it, you want it. And if you don't, you don't. Like, that's not good marketing. You know, like to me, that's no, it's not, because if they don't care that I want it, then why would I want it?
But like, I mean, that's how they've handled it so far too.
It doesn't make any sense. Like that. Like to me, it's like, you tell me why I want it. Like that's why I think that, you know, it is incumbent on them. You're right, for them to say like, this is the device we're working on, and like I really do believe internally that like they don't really believe in it, like because they act like they don't believe in it.
But I think,
and that's
so what I'm saying, and to be clear, I think that they are standing behind it the right way with games like Horizon, where it's like that they are doing that big push for them. They believe in it in that sense. They don't believe it in the sense of all this other stuff, and it is more if you want it, you want it. That's what I'm saying. It's like for Final Fantasy 15, it's if you want it, you want it. For Horizon, it's like, I want the premium experience, and that's what that's going to be, and they're going to stand behind that more then. I know they're going to.
I hope so.
And I think that now they stood behind it too much with the conference. That's why I think the press release is better, because that's showing how much they stand behind it. This is a product. Obviously, it's official. But
I think they felt like they needed to do that. I think we're not a fly on the wall at Sony, and I'm not super familiar with their hardware people anymore, so it's not like I'm having conversations with these folks, but I just don't get I get that this was very experimental. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's an experimental move that no one's ever done in the console space to this extent. And so you have to do more than just shit it out. Like otherwise you're not getting, otherwise the reaction you're gauging to it isn't really a pure reaction. It's a reaction based on like your very laissez-faire fucking marketing and your very hands-off approach to it. And I just don't, that's why I really do believe, and I mean, it would have required number crunching and it probably would have been a huge lift, is if I think it would have been the most effective if they had to do this to be like, this is the PS4. You know, like we're not selling the old PS4 anymore. And this is it. And I think that would have been way more compelling, because it'd been like, holy shit, like that would have caused some sort of fracture of civil war that already happened anyway. So you might as well have just been like, we believe in this so much that this is the machine. And if you want to upgrade, that's great. And if you don't, it's all your games will work in perpetuity on PS4, but this is the machine moving forward. I think that would have been like a very heavy lift, and it would have been like, we believe in this idea. Instead, like, I think that you can't really garner much out of it, because it's just not, it's not being treated. It's being treated like it's over there, you know. And I don't think that that's an effective way. It's the same thing they're doing with PSVR, although they're doing that for different reasons, because they don't have supply to sell, so they're not marketing it. They're not wasting money, but. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad the PS Pro's out there. People seem to enjoy it, and I think that's great. And I don't understand all the technical stuff anyway, so I'm never going to pretend like I do. But I will always take issue with the way it was rolled out, and Sony's done so many good things, and I think they've rebounded very well with PSX in particular, that you want them to be able to understand. It's almost one of those things where I'm like, I don't think that they understand or have a cohesive message internally that they can then send out to everyone else about the machine. And I think that played out. I think that the evidence is everywhere, you know?
It's the normal struggle too, I think. And I think that when you right now compare PlayStation 4 Pro, right, and our feelings on it versus the Switch, right? For me, it's very similar to when it was PlayStation 3 versus the Wii, where it was like PlayStation 3 and I'm like, I don't have an HDTV and I don't have high-speed internet, but this is a new way to play games. That's what I love, games. I'm excited about that. I want to go do that. My games being prettier, like I'm in the same boat as Colin or you and Colin or whoever. I mean, I was just like, okay, the Switch is gonna be $720 when I take it away from the dock. I don't fucking care. I'm gonna be fucking playing a real Zelda on the plane. I'm gonna be playing a real Mario on the plane. I'm gonna be able to play Skyrim on the plane. If they put fucking Mass Effect Andromeda on that thing and dial the graphics down, but it still runs on, it would be a real struggle to me of like, well, fuck, I can take it with me anywhere. I can take this with. That's what gets me excited, not fucking HDR, none of this other crap.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I guess I differ just in the sense that I agree with you about like the Nintendo systems being different and like they are gameplay focused and whatever. But like on the PlayStation, it's like I do like with games like Uncharted and stuff, I play those games for their cinematic beauty and stuff. And I think that
but I still think like
HDR
Uncharted 4 is
and 4K
beautiful.
It is, but like if I know that there's a more premium, like a better version of it, I want that. Like that game is designed to be a technical behemoth, and it's like I want to experience that the way that it should be experienced, in a way that Nintendo, I feel like those games are meant to be experienced this way, and that's why the Switch is very exciting to me. I love Nintendo games. Everybody knows that. Like I think that Nintendo is great at having graphics that are good enough because their art styles are amazing, and it translates that. That doesn't translate to Horizon or Uncharted or.
But I don't think that. I mean, that is the difference going to be that drastic.
I mean,
this is like Tomb Raider when they were like, "Oh, on the PC version, watch her hair bob around." I'm like, why the fuck would I care?
Because I think it adds to the experience. Like especially a lot of these games, like the gameplay's fine. The gameplay's great, but the gameplay's not why those games are amazing. The gameplay just is part of the whole experience. I think that the experience is the narrative, the story, the immersiveness, all this stuff. And that stuff, it really does add. And when it comes to the home console space, I want a fucking awesome home console. If there's a better one out there, I want the better one.
Okay.
This goes back to the couple generations ago of when there was multi-platform games. It's like I wanted to play a bunch of them on Xbox, even though PS2 was my console of choice, because they looked better on Xbox, you know?
I hear you. I just feel like right now when I do see comparisons at PSX, you know, I left the Sony lounge, which I think we're playing on Pros, and I went to the Pro thing, was talking to some of the guys there who knew us, and we're walking around. I'm like, yeah, this looks really good. Infamous Second Son never looked bad, or maybe it was First Light they were playing, but it was just like, cool, awesome. The jump, I think, is like we're talking about it like we're comparing PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 and what that jump will be like or how that'll work, because it'll be so much more horsepower under the hood and this, that, and the other, and teraflops and shit I don't know about either. It's like, whatever, cool. It's just, I think we're just different gamers in the way of like, and don't get me wrong, when my PlayStation 4 dies, I will buy a PlayStation 4 Pro.
I probably will too, just because it's like, why would
I want the better experience when I'm investing the money, but I'm not going to invest the money for no reason. I can't justify that in my head when the games look good enough already.
I think that the company that benefited most from Pro's launch is Microsoft, because I think that they, we've talked about how I hope that Sony, in the outside chance that they release a new handheld, for instance, will look at how the Switch is received and see if that's a market worth playing in, because I think that the market's ceded entirely to Nintendo, and so if you see a vibrant kind of resurgence in handheld gaming, then you want to go back there and compete because money can be made there, and that's what a rational business would do. I think Microsoft looks at this situation and is like, well, we see exactly what we don't do with Scorpio. Like, we have to have a meteor machine, which they're going to. We have to We have to have clear messaging and educate people over, I think, a longer period of time. We can't be cagey about it and weird. I think Phil Spencer and those guys have learned way more about what to do with Scorpio by watching PS4 Pro than they could have ever learned in a fucking boardroom with hypotheticals. And I think that's an exciting prospect, I think, for them, because I will say we're talking about all these bad things that have happened because that is the topic. But I think that the company that had the best year is Microsoft. And because just, there are mistakes being made, games being delayed, things not being delivered, but they're quiet. They are delivering.
They're putting out games,
and they are learning, and they're closing the gap. They're never going to close it completely. The generation is lost for them. But I've been very impressed with their studious approach and their quiet approach to just making things better. Backwards compatibility has 300 games on it now, which is insane. I really liked that boutique controller thing they did. I see pictures of those controllers all the time. Not only the Elite, but the customizable controllers. They're fucking awesome. And I love the Xbox One controller. I think it's great. And their games are coming out. Gears of War 4 was fun. More games in the future, and we'll see.
Dead Rising 4 is fun.
And people love Forza Horizon 3. Yeah.
So, which is what I was saying on PS I Love You, where I'm like, we're talking about Gran Turismo Sport and stuff, and I'm like, I just don't think it matters that much anymore. Like, it still matters. It's still going to sell millions of copies, but it doesn't. If Gran Turismo 6 was any indication, and it's kind of tepid sales as opposed to Gran Turismo 5, which was PS3's best-selling exclusive. The things have shifted in Microsoft's direction in some ways that I think are demonstrable and obvious, and so I'm excited about to watch what they do in the new year. The one thing I want to add to the list is PSVR, which I think Sony kind of fumbled as well
by not having enough units.
Yeah. I was telling Greg on Colin and Greg Live this morning that someone had sent me a story that I had read basically saying PSVR has actually outsold Oculus and Vive, but they're not marketing it because they're having production problems, and the demand is simply overwhelming supply, which is a good problem for them. But
so interesting. But I've seen it every store I go into. There's like 3 or 4 of them.
Really?
I don't look
for sure.
Yeah.
Next time you do that, call me because there was a couple friends online who were like, I need one.
Target and Best Buy definitely have them. They're like in Daly City.
I don't think it's a road trip because you're just going to Target. It's 10 minutes away. Kevin.
Road trip, Kevin.
But yeah, like I feel like it's disappointing for me to hear that because I'm such a believer in PSVR. I'm so glad that it's outstripping its competitors because I think it's the most accessible, and I think that Lauren Lanning told us a long time ago he thought PSVR would easily win, and he's right. But it's disappointing to hear the downgrade in sales expectations, seemingly coming from the fact that people cannot find them. And I wish that, and apparently the production problem has to do with the lenses. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what I read. And that Sony obviously didn't anticipate this. But it's disappointing because they had a little bit of momentum in October and we're simply not able to capitalize on it. They've only sold apparently 800,000 of them worldwide, which is, I'm sure they're fucking thrilled with, but because I think that they're anticipating they wanted like 1 million in the first 3 months or something like that, which is great, but they could have done better and they could have done more. And it's similar to Nintendo's thing with the NES Mini, not to the extent because it's not as big of a device, but it's an important device for the PlayStation Hardcore, and it's a game-changing device and a paradigm-shifting device that I think that they should have anticipated was going to do better. And if they really did believe in it, they should have gone more to manufacture more of them, even if they were going to sit on shelves, because that's the only way you're going to proliferate the machine. They're not playing the artificial scarcity game; they really don't have any, and I think that that's not good. Going into the holiday season because they're going to lose with Switch coming out. That's going to be the next big thing, and PSVR is always going to exist and it's going to percolate over here. But why not have taken more advantage of it?
People are ready to spend money going into the holidays.
That's the dark horse fucked up thing that happened this year. I think is Sony's inability to. They could have sold twice as many of them probably.
The last one I want to add is Ubisoft's E3 press conference. It was way too long, and I don't understand. In a year where E3 conferences were just so amazing and they just fucking nailed it, and we're at a point where hopefully next year is even better. Like the last couple of years just being better. This was a step back for Ubisoft. They put way too many games in way too long of a time. It was just
they spent too long
focus on a couple things, get in, get out, cool, but they didn't do that. And
here's me talking about the game, here's some gameplay, here's a video about the game, let's play more of the game and talk more about the game. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop doing that. No. And we're not at all educated enough to talk about it, but while you bring up Ubisoft Division, Alfredo talked about that, right? Of like how the latest patch fixed a whole bunch of shit, but it was broken for a while. And
long time,
they kind of went away to fix it and come back and figure out like, sorry about all the things that were going wrong with the new content. Here you go.
Yes.